This is the Gauntlet Podcast's favorite games of 2016. Woohoo! My name is Jason.
My name is David.
I'm Lowell.
I'm Steve.
And I'm Rich.
Awesome. Listeners, we tried to get Andrea to join us for this one, but she had a pre-existing obligation, and so she wasn't able to join us.
OSR obligation.
She's playing games, so you'll give her a pass on playing games.
Yeah, that's true. That trumps everything, right? Mm-hmm. But we're gonna press forward without her. This is a great show. We did it last year. It's our most popular episode. I'm excited to do it again this year. I had a really great year of gaming. I don't know about you guys, but this was a pretty spectacular year in gaming for me. Anybody just have any opening thoughts on like how great a year it was in terms of gaming?
I'm really tired. I'm really tired because I did the Ladder of Insanity. I completed that in October. I'm currently in the running for most new games GM'd, which is around 15, which are completely new to me games that I ran, and then 30 brand new to me RPGs played as well. So lots of gaming, and it was good stuff. But man, I need this holiday coming up.
Yeah, I'm kind of with you on that. I was like doing a little dance. This is the last episode of the Gauntlet we're doing this year. I was like, oh yes. Not that I don't love doing it. I do love doing it, but you need to recharge your batteries.
Yeah, it's okay. We'll keep draining yours, Jason, through Comic Strip AP.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, we've got some. Well, that's the thing, right? We don't really go anywhere. I don't know why we call it a break because it's not really. We keep doing a bunch of stuff, right? But that's okay. We can pretend like it is. Awesome. Lowell, Steve, any thoughts on your year in gaming?
Well, Rich made me kind of track my gaming like he did. He tried to get me on the Ladder of Insanity, and while I am a few rungs up on that, I gave up trying to follow in his footsteps. But it was a dynamite year. Multiple campaigns that went all year and multiple one-shots and new games, so really solid for me.
International Man of Mystery, Steve.
So I moved a little before halfway through the year in between like job search and, adjustment and really, really god awful schedule at new job, which I'm still waiting to get remedied. It hasn't been so great. There've been lots of good stuff in there, but, it has not been a quantity year for sure.
Well, we're going to talk about some of the good stuff today. So.
Hooray, yes.
It's going to be awesome. I'm just glad you've been able to stick with the show, Steve. I will say that just since we're kind of reminiscing on the year, I was super, super bummed out when we lost Dan on the podcast, right? That was a really big, like, emotional toll for me. Like, it really, like, was a bummer. And I was so happy that you decided to, like, slot in there and take over his spot because it was super necessary for me. Like to have that connection to Houston Gauntlet.
Yeah, a bit of continuity.
It was super important to me. So I appreciate that you're able to, even with your crazy schedule, you've been able to stick around for us. So
I appreciate you keeping me on.
No. You're a huge benefit to the show. David, how was your year in gaming?
My year in gaming has been fantastic. Gaming for me is the thing that keeps me grounded and sane right now as I am starting a new career, I suppose, of law school, and then after that being a lawyer or whatever follows that. But
your law career has already started. Like you get to mark your law career from the day you start going to law school. So
that's what they tell me. So I believe them.
I did some of my most like legally significant work when I was in law school. Right. I mean, like some of the research I did and some of the projects I worked on have had far more impact on the law than anything I've done in my career. It's real, right? It's hard, and I think it's awesome. So. Oh yeah.
But this. Gaming and the Gauntlet help me keep perspective on, so I don't get crazy and bogged down like some of my classmates may.
I've been happy that Discern Realities has been kind of a pressure valve for you, so because I know what that's like. Awesome, David. Would you like a drum roll, David?
No.
You're gonna get one anyway. David, what is your favorite game of 2016?
My favorite game of 2016 was actually a playtest, but it was a mostly complete game at the time, and I think many people will agree with me that a fantastic game from 2016 is Dialect.
Dungeon World. Wait, no, what?
Dungeon World, you say? Dungeon World?
Yes. No, Dialect.
Yeah.
This is a game by Authority Games, which is Catherine Himes and Hakan Esea Legalu.
Close.
I don't know.
A for effort.
A for effort, yeah.
I'm sorry. It's a difficult last name. I tried. But Hakan, he actually was there running the game for us, and it was super, super special. It was one of those games that, though not played on a Sunday, it felt like Story Game Sunday to me. It was just so good. So the game is a game about language and how it dies. I actually was going back today earlier and looking at our document that we had all of our language that we created on. And it was just so good to remember it and remember how we made strange words mean different things and how important it seemed at the time. So the game is about a group of human beings who are isolated for some reason or other. And they start to associate different meanings with different words that traditionally might have a different meaning, or they're nonsense words. And you keep adding more and more vocabulary from important events or that are important to your culture as you continue through the game. And then at one point, towards the end of the game, you start having scenes where the isolated humans are reconnected with the greater world, and they're kind of confronted with the fact that they're different now because the language has changed for them and what they value has changed. And it happened very organically for us. It felt very natural. Jason, you were in that game.
Yeah, I loved it. It was really special. It almost transcendent, right? I mean, when we were playing it, I was having these really strong emotions, about it, because I was suddenly, I was being taught something. And I think whenever a game can kind of like teach you something, and clearly like the authors of the game, like this is a subject super dear to their heart, right? Like the changing nature of language and stuff like that. And it just felt like such a perfect marriage of like mechanics and story and like sort of like the lesson, I guess, of the game, it all just kind of came together in a really, really like tidy, complete way in like a 3-hour session. I mean, it was done. It was really terrific. It felt really, really good. I even like I don't know about you, David, but like for maybe 2 or 3 days after it was over, I was like, I still like had those words in my brain, I was still like doing, like I was still in my mind, like using those words or thinking about those words we made like in a certain way. So, I just think it's kind of a testament to how effective the game is. Yeah,
I agree. I was thinking about it for several days thereafter, and it just took a while before I could say, like grounded without thinking about that being some kind of evil, just ostentatious thing. That wouldn't make sense to anybody who wasn't there.
That was one of our words, right? Grounded. Yeah. It was stupendous. I don't have anything else to add to it, but I'm glad that you enjoyed it as much as you did, because they've just had a really super successful Kickstarter. They're still in the middle of it, I think, for their game.
Yeah, I was looking at it earlier today. I think that speaks volumes about how well it is, and that other game designers are calling it out as a fantastic game too for their Kickstarter. They blew their goal away. It's awesome when games can do that.
Yeah. It's a truly awesome thing.
Happy holidays, everyone. This is Ray Otis, and my favorite game of 2016 is The Warren by Marshall Miller and Bully Pulpit Games. I love that The Warren is about storytelling from the viewpoint of real-world animals. I love setting moods with naturalistic elements, and I love watching players try to work through problems with a fairly humble set of character resources. It's a great first game for new players, and I've enjoyed running it for children too. The book is beautiful. The text has a nice economy to it, so that every bit makes sense and there isn't a lot of extra fluff to distract you. I just think it's an all-around great addition to the hobby.
I'm Issa Wills, and I'm from the Gauntlet UK, and my favourite game of 2016 is Monster Hearts by Avery Alder. Monster Hearts didn't quite resonate with me when I played it several years ago, but having played it again recently, it's managed to hit all the right notes. And it really has been a while since a game has smacked me around the head with those emotional highs and seriously crazy lows. So for that reason, it gets my vote for 2016. It really is a storming game.
My name is Krista Mead, and my favorite game of 2016 is hands down Urban Shadows by Andrea Medeiros and Mark Diaz-Truman. I was drawn to the idea of an urban fantasy game with a darker side, with a twist that pushes you to play something you're not. We've had some of the best role-playing sequences I've ever experienced in this game. Intimate moments when a bullet was pulled out of me, awkward monster human dates, and actions by other characters that repel and attract your character. We never planned to play a campaign, but we've had more than 15 sessions and we're still going strong. I've really grown as a player with this game, and I recommend it to others.
All right, Lowell. What is your favorite game of 2016?
This is so hard.
It's rather cruel, isn't it? It's a cruel thing, this episode.
It's Crow's Mantle. Crow's Mantle.
No, definitely not. Not the game I wrote.
I want someone to name their own game as their favorite game at some point. That would be that
guy. I got great sessions out of Mutant Year Zero and 13th Age, but some other games that I really loved that I only had one-shots of. But the game that gave me the most pleasure throughout the year has been Worldwide Wrestling.
Cool.
It's a game that completely changed the way I look at something. I like doing research for games. So often, if I'm going to run Mage, Sorcerer's Crusade, I'm going to read a bunch about the Renaissance or things like that, and I'll pick up little bits and pieces. But this opened up wrestling. It gave me a way to look at that. And I hadn't liked it at all. Hadn't been interested. But now I can read these stories and I can see it behind the scenes and I can get a sense of it. And that's what this game does, is it gives you a way, a cipher to pull it through.
Almost permission, right?
Yeah.
In a way. Yeah.
Because I wouldn't have put all that stuff together. I would have known there was kayfabe and stuff. And I have a friend who's a wrestling guy, and he had kind of been pushing on this. And it was Rich, again, that made me buy the book. And I was like, okay. And then I played that session with Nathan running at Origins, and it was amazing. It was a great group. Yoshi was in this session, and he blew the doors off. He was so
awesome.
good.
Cool.
so good. And people were playing with each other so well. There are a couple of things that I think are really amazing is making combat really narrative, but it's not really combat. It's kind of this weird sort of shared poetics that you have to work together to kind of lay out how you're struggling in the ring and giving other people's opening and this interesting loose improv. And then we kind of go to the dice and that changes things up. And I love what that does.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yeah.
That part of the wrestling was so like what you just said about it being like a sort of almost like a collaboration, like between the two players. I've played Worldwide Wrestling. It feels exactly like that, which is awesome. And also, that's wrestling, right? I mean, like, it's wrestling. Like the two performers, like, they have a conversation, before and even sometimes like, quietly during the match, to make sure that they're doing the right moves, that they're setting things up for the other guy so that they hit the, so that they can like hit the, the predetermined winner condition, like effectively. Yeah, I mean, it's a cool aspect of the game.
Yeah, and that sometimes things don't go right in the ring, that falls don't land, that people missteps, and they have to adjust to that. And so that die roll coming in there really kind of sets that. I love the dynamic that we have between the backstage, sort of offstage stuff, and then the on-screen. I mean, I don't think it's like Night Witches exactly, but I like that we've got a couple of different spaces that we're operating in with very different feelings to them. I mean, I hate to make that comparison, but
I know where you're going with it. I mean, it's like different phases, right? Essentially, right?
Yeah, and I think that's really amazing. I had great experiences running this for people who kind of like wrestling and people that don't like wrestling and wrestling aficionados. And every time I've run it, I've had a good time. Sherry, my wife, had no interest in wrestling. She played it. She's played it several times. She did a whole arc with her character, went from a jobber to an athlete, and if I run it again, she'll play. And that is just dynamite. The other thing is that Nathan Paoletta has done a great job supporting it. There's a superb G+ community, and the International Incident Supplement, I picked that up. It's really good. Had nice shirts, most comfortable shirts I bought, I think.
I had one. I've worn mine out. Mine has like holes now.
I bought two more on the Black Friday sale because they're so comfortable.
I should get a replacement for mine.
And like the little cards that he has for the moves that are really nice. Everything is really well supported. It's well laid out. It's just a great thing. And I think what is also interesting is some PBTA games have an appreciation for their genre. They know what goes on in the genre. They know that, in this kind of urban political game, these are the things that are going to happen. These are the things that get played. These are the themes that we're going to embrace. We know what the play is like. I think more than any other game I've maybe ever seen, Worldwide Wrestling loves wrestling. It loves its subject matter.
Yeah.
And it takes it warts and all and brings it out to you. It really embraces that, and every page tells you that. And I can't think of another game that's like that for me. So, Dynamite.
I'm so glad you brought up the idea that Nathan continues to support Worldwide Wrestling even after having published the core book. David and I were just talking with Slade Stoller on our show on Discern Realities, and one of the things that came up was this idea that a lot of like indie publishers, they kind of fire and forget, it's like, I published my book and now I'm done, and maybe the community will pick it up and do things with it, or maybe we'll never hear about this game again. But yeah, there's something to be said for like the sort of trad impulse to continue to support your book, right? I don't know. I've always thought, even though Paul just totally disagrees with this idea, but I've always thought that Paul Sega should make more stuff for the clay that woke, right? I think like his particular vision would serve players very well. But so I like that aspect of it too. I've picked up all the different playbooks and stuff for it, and I may never get to. Well, I was about to say I may never get to play them, but I think I might get to play them because we're going to be doing Gauntlet League Wrestling, which is pretty cool. We'd be remiss if we didn't mention that now. So, yeah. Do you want to talk about what your plan is for that, Lowell? Just while we're talking about it?
We're doing 8 sessions, and it's part of the Gauntlet Hangouts. It's Sunday mornings.
And the 8th session is a pay-per-view.
Yes, the 8th session is a pay-per-view because that's what everything builds towards. All the storylines build towards the pay-per-view. And you can just come in and play a session or play more. I know the first 3 sessions are filled, and I'm hoping that we'll get people trying things out. I'm really looking forward to seeing how it plays over an arc and building those heat maps, and it's going to be fun, super fun.
And I think it's awesome. It's going to be Sunday morning too, because that's kind of like when wrestling is, right? Like when I was a kid, that was when you watched wrestling, was Saturday and Sunday morning.
Out of Chicago, I remember I would always go, "Ugh, this isn't cartoons," and flip past it,
Yeah, you might have sold me on this, Lowell. Like, I haven't played this yet, and I keep hearing people talk about it and how great it is, but I was one of those people who... I wasn't into wrestling when I was a kid. I thought that it was silly that all kinds of people would show up and pretend that a fake wrestling match was a real wrestling match and get into it like that. But the way you've described it, it sounds like this could be so much fun.
Yeah, it's so much insight. It's insight into wrestling, and then it brings that to make it just so much more fun to play. Everybody's got a slightly knowing wink, but it's super affectionate.
I just love the idea of 2 people in a ring working together very closely to make it look like they hate and want to kill each other. But yeah, I'm with David. No interest in wrestling unless the Ultimate Warrior is saying something ridiculous, and then then I'll watch it. But I don't actually care about the wrestling itself. But yeah, I have to give it a go because it sounds like it's going to be fun. It's also really cool that like a supplement put out for a PBTA game is really rare. So the fact that that international incident exists is a good
there's
selling
several
point.
Things. I mean, there's he released multiple playbook releases, and there was international incident, and there was a whole line of things as I recall.
Some of the people have done interesting little supplements for it.
Right, yeah.
My angle on Worldwide Wrestling is I'm just, as a person who's wanted, my white whale to make a game is a baseball RPG. And I had just kind of resigned myself that, like, seriously, a sports RPG is just not going to be that super fun unless you get into the stats and the nitty gritty, and you can't just live in the joy of that sport. And yes, it's sports entertainment, but Worldwide Wrestling just blew me away. It's so smartly done, and it's so welcoming. Like you guys talking about, I don't care about wrestling, but I'll give this game a shot. That's awesome. I mean, I can't imagine when I ran the Bat Hack. It was like, yeah, I kind of know baseball, but I'm here because I like you, Rich, not because I think your game's going to be awesome.
I don't know anything about baseball.
But here, like, people come in, they don't know much about wrestling, but they get drawn in, and it's really fun, and you want to do it again and again. It's such a sharp design, such a great game.
I turn up for the camp. I mean, that's the thing about wrestling with me. And so Genji Kohan, who made Weeds and Orange is the New Black, she's making a serialized TV show based off the Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling.
What?
Yeah, and like
that sounds good.
Yeah, I know. It's a Glow, Gorgeous Ladies of Wrestling. That was a program that was on in the 80s and or like mid to late 80s, and I was obsessed with it as a kid. Like I was already obsessed with wrestling, but like I was totally obsessed with Glow because it was like these badass women who were like so ridiculous but also really fabulous, and like I just like I that was like my world. I was like, every part of my being wanted that to be like, you know, real or whatever, right? So yeah, I'm into the camp. I'm into like sort of playing to the camera aspects of it, which is why I really like the sort of in between match stuff on on Worldwide Wrestling more than the match stuff. But there's something for everybody. So.
I gotta know, Jason, have you played a character in the game yet whose theme is that he is a hairless werewolf?
No, but that sounds
what?
I'm not in that yet. Well, so my character that I made for the game itself, like as part of the Kickstarter backer goal thing, his name was El Toro, and his finishing move was called Rocky Mountain Oysters, and basically he just like dropped down on his knees and then like gave you an uppercut to the balls, and that was Rocky Mountain Oysters.
Oh my god!
I haven't played that character yet, though. Awesome, Lowell, is there anything else you want to say about Worldwide Wrestling before?
Yeah, I said so much. I'm just so happy with it.
Good pick.
My name is Dan, and my favorite game of 2016 is actually a game that was released in 2012. It's called Palace Gates, and it's from the Heads of State collection by Mark Valianatos. In this game, the PCs are all subjects of a dictator who's just died, and they're wandering around through his palace and looking to see what's there and maybe do a little bit of looting. You know, whatever happens, happens. So it's driven by one of the best random item tables in all of RPGs, and over the course of the game, as you explore the dictator's life, it does an amazing job of showing you the human side of a person who starts out pretty objectively terrible. I think it's rare for RPGs to actually present nuanced and sympathetic villains, but that's the whole purpose of this game, and it totally delivers, which is why it was the best game I played last year.
Hi, this is Edwin from the Gauntlet UK. My favourite game for 2016, which probably comes as no surprise to anyone on the community, is Lovecraft-esque. It's a zero prep, GM-less game with 3 to 5 players, possibly 6 at a push. It's a really good game. You can drop it in any time. The scenarios at the back of the book really help new players and focus the story. But even without those, you can produce some really interesting results from the game. The card mechanic, which allows you to put some twists and turns into the story, are really good. And overall, it's just a really great game. Played it lots of times this year. Highly recommend it. Lovecraft-esque.
Hi, this is Horst. My game of 2016 is Blood and Water by James Mullen. I chose the game because I had a couple of insanely entertaining sessions via Gauntlet Hangouts run by the author himself. Also, the game has a clever mechanic where another player can roll for you, but has to take the fallout if the roll fails, which creates links between characters that emerge through play rather than having to front-load connections during character creation.
Hello, everyone. This is Farrell Riley, co-captain of the Gauntlet Houston, and my favorite game this year was Lacuna Part 1 by Jared Sorensen. I ran this little gem for our Friday group back in January, and even today it's still amazing what we came up with. Our brave agents explored the mystery of Blue City, avoid the searching gaze of the Spider-Man, and ended up destroying the collective unconsciousness of mankind. But best of all, everyone had to do some soul-searching, and decide if they should trust what the agency told them, or if they should do what was right, including whether to trust each other. Tense scenes and plenty of back and forth, all while trying not to die on the slab. So if you want to learn more about the true creation of the mystery, track down the girl from Blue City, go get yourself some mirrored shades, your best black tie, and your number 2 pencils. And remember, there is no wine clearance.
Okay, Steve. Drum rolls, gentlemen. Steve, what is your favorite game of 2016?
So my game of the year this year is Cheat Your Own Adventure by Shane McLean. I don't know that we've mentioned who actually wrote the thing. So Cheat Your Own Adventure is a story game, role-playing game that replicates classic Choose Your Own Adventure books up to and including a mechanic for when your character dies and then you cheat because you saved your thumb in the previous page and you return to where you were in the book and make a different choice. It's free. The rules fit on a page and it's a ton of fun. It scales very well. You've got 3 players. It's doable. You've got 10 players. It's doable.
We've played as many as 8 or 9, and it works great. Like with 8 or 9 people.
Yeah, okay.
And it works like a charm. I mean,
it's a ton of fun, and it's designed to replicate adventure fiction, but it provides really reliably fun and entertaining experiences, venturing very far outside of that genre window.
It's so true. Yeah.
Jason, I know you've played it more than I have, but I've played Lovecraftian, personal melodrama, slasher flick, bizarre time travel, robot body horror, and others, and it's all gone swimmingly.
Yeah.
My personal favorite is still that slasher movie one, the first time we did that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
One of the things that I think is really cool about Cheat Your Own Adventure, like you said, that it's really quite flexible and can do lots of different types of stories, and effectively, too. One of the things that I've found that you can do to sort of tweak the story outcomes or whatever is to change what the losing condition is, right? So, in the standard adventure mode, losing just means dying, right? But just by changing like the losing condition. So we played ages ago, one of our very first games, we did a man who was dying of cancer, I think. And his losing condition for his story was he dies, but he dies like bitter, as opposed to dying like, at peace, like peacefully. For Dia de los Muertos, which was our Halloween thing, we had, we played several games of Cheat Your Own Adventure. And one of them was about a little boy who was a psychic who was connected to the serial killer in our series, Porkface. And the losing condition was the little boy becomes Porkface, right?
Okay.
That was the losing condition, right? So just by tweaking that little bit of the game, you can take it in so many different directions.
Did you pre-establish that losing condition in that case?
Yes, we did. Yeah. We talked about like in each of those 3 Dia de los Muertos sessions, I set like the first scenes were set in each of them, so like they got kicked off a specific way each time,
right?
And then we stated what the losing condition was beforehand. So
yeah, okay, that's cool. Since basically you're replicating reading through a book. I like the opportunity the game presents you to speak in an authorly narrative voice, to, write in the style of fiction, basically, as you're going, that you're trying to replicate. And, we had very good fun with that, numerous times, but again, especially in that slasher flick. Jason, I think my favorite moment from that was like, okay, you are playing the killer, and there were sexy teenagers trying to run away, whatever. And Jason, your proposal was, if you follow them in a walking pace but still manage to catch up, turn to page 73.
Yeah.
It's that sort of thing.
Yeah, I was pretty proud of that. Yeah, it's such a cool game. It's one of my favorite finds of the last few years, like far and away.
Oh yeah, it's a great game. Awesome pick. Like, I've played this game with over 10 people this year who are not role-play type people, including my parents. This is the first and only role-playing game they've ever played.
Oh, that's great.
But it's so easy to get people to play. I play with my friends at the bar. I'm just like, hey, all we need is, this 2 dice, and I can do that on my phone. It's no problem. And they love playing it, and they ask me to play it now. They're like, hey, let's do that thing right now. And it's like, okay.
That's awesome.
Oh, that's really good. Cool. Yeah. Earlier this week, I encountered a post on the Reddit RPG forums, and there was a guy talking about, hey guys, I'm looking to, publish a game I've been working on for a while soon. And I've got everything the game seems to require, but I'm only up to about 120 pages. And since all good games are at least 200 pages long, I'm looking for suggestions of what sort of things I can insert into my game. And you can have a ton of fun with the thing that you print out on a single page and very little else, aside from other people. And I like that this is a sterling example of that fact. You don't need much more than
rules.
It's grappling.
Grappling. Who said that? Lowell, was that
Yes.
It was Lowell.
Drowning and falling rules.
Yep.
It's the ultimate example of what you can accomplish in an indie style role playing game, where less is more. So I agree.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was my runner-up last year for this. I almost chose it over Night Witches, and for many of the reasons you've said, and even just this year, since I had those thoughts last year about Cheat Your Own Adventure, just in the year since then, my affection for it has grown even more. Like it's just a game that's filled with like narrative possibility, and it's accessible. Like you, I've played it with tons of people who don't play role-playing games or any games like this, period. And I always love something like that. So is there anything else you want to say about Cheat Your Own Adventure?
No. We'll include a link, I'm sure, in the show notes to a nice, handy little single-page PDF with which you can have lots of fun.
Hey, we're going to break in here with some Game of the Year talk from one of our hosts who was unable to join us on the main recording. Andrea, thanks for making some time to jump on.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
You've played a bunch of games as you do every year. I got to know, what was your favorite RPG of the year? Go for it. What is it, Andrea?
My number one favorite game of the year is not out yet. I kind of...
You hipster!
I know. I beta playtested it. It's a game called Prism by Whitney DeLaglio, and it's absolutely charming. I ran it for my Wednesday night group, which they're a little bit silly, so I wasn't sure how they'd feel about it. But it really won all of them over, and they've been bugging me to run it again for them, so that's a good thing. It's a game set underwater. Everyone plays kind of like merpeople, but you're not just like merpeople. You are merpeople with various fish components. So you might be like a shark merperson, or you might be like an eel merperson, or a seaweed merperson, which is really cute. It was like the underwater Flintstones. So we got to work in all of the cool, like, what does a refrigerator look like? We had little messenger fish in bottles, and that's how people communicated, because you're underwater and you can't write things down. And
nice. That's really
it was pretty
clever.
cute.
I love that. This sounds like really fun world building.
Oh, it was fantastic. And Whitney is illustrating it all, I think, herself, and she's a fantastic artist with a really cool style. But this is really her shtick. It's based off a comic she's been writing. One of my favorite things about the game, though, is there's a relationship mechanic. So, you and I are friends, Rich.
Mm-hmm.
You might do something that I'm like, ooh, I don't like how he handled that situation. So I go to my little table, and I move the relationship down a notch. And that actually affects how we interact, and like we have mechanical benefits that might have just taken away, and it's actually really cool. And it's kind of fun to play with it just to see how lopsided some relationships get.
So if I have a +1 relationship with you, do you then have a +1 with me, or could you have a +3, or could you have like a -3?
I can have anything I want.
Oh,
yeah.
neat.
So like we had one guy in our party that was super just over friendly and had like high relationship scores with everybody. And then there was like two people that were just like, nope, nope, go burn in a fire. We don't like you. So it was really cool, and it was really fun exploring that. And like I said, my group just could not get enough of this game. It was so cute and so charming. And Whitney was just so excited to have someone actually playing the game and giving her feedback, so I felt important.
You should. You've got a lot of experience, and I'm sure that that's very valuable for Whitney. I've had a few conversations with Whitney back in the day. This sounds like just totally her, and that's exciting to hear her express that kind of game that she wants to make, and you're receiving it and enjoying it in that same vein. That's awesome.
Mm-hmm. It's absolutely fantastic. Underwater relationships, and there are ghosts. There's a lot of like undead that you have to try to deal with, and It's one of those games where, sure, you can clobber the big dead thing with your hammer, but that might not be the best way to handle it, and the gods that are overseeing you might not agree with that.
Interesting.
So it's got a lot of interesting little twists and things that really kind of call out to me personally.
Well, cool. Andrea, thank you so much for hopping on so you could share that with us.
You're welcome.
Hi, my name is Brian Willey, and my favorite game of 2016 is Barbarians of Lemuria. The reasons why I chose it are the quick, cinematic, fun combat, the enjoyable and evocative magic system, and the focus on the story. It's easy to understand, it's simple to explain, it's fun to play. It's also easily hacked for different settings, and I even wrote one up myself for a sci-fi TV show I like. It's a great game. Check it out.
Okay, here we go. Rich.
All right. So a little bit of history. I just mostly want to say these numbers because they blow my mind. They're going to sound like lies, but I've tracked all of this, so I know it to be true. I have played in 2016, up to the point of this recording, 47 different tabletop RPGs.
Nice. Well done.
I've played 197 sessions of RPGs.
Nice. Good. Yeah.
So I had a wide net from which to choose what my game of the year would be. Fun games like Tweaks, which I mentioned here mostly to make Jason happy.
Tweaks.
Sessions.
I just love saying tweaks.
Oh my god.
Sessions of Cat and Singularity and Legend of the Elements were all incredibly fun for me. My home game of Dungeon World, which resulted in all of the greatness with my son and his
pig in a sack.
Yes, his pig in a sack and his gnome hat and his sparkles. It was just good stuff, and lots of Monster Hearts as well. Lots of fun there. When I sat down and I said, what was the game that blew me away? And I think it was mostly because when I read through this game the first time through, I wasn't entirely sure if I could make it work at the table. That there were certain aspects of it where I'm like, I love where this is going. What the author intends, this inspirational material is right. This is totally my jam.
The audience is on the edge of their seat right now.
But I don't know if I want to say fucks all the time. That was the thing.
I want you to say fucks all the time.
Right? See?
Fuck.
And David didn't play any of the games of One Percenter, the outlaw biker game.
Woo.
One Percenter by Robert Nolan of Creepy Doll Studios. I ran 4 sessions of this, and they were all exemplary. For anyone who's just tuning in and hasn't heard me sing the praises before, it's Sons of Anarchy, the RPG. You create a motorcycle club. The idea behind the name of the game, the One Percenter, is not like the whole One Percenter versus Wall Street movement. There's an old quote that only 1% of motorcycle gangs are actually violent, and so proudly, this game is the One Percenter. There are rules for making your club and the logo for your club. One of our players was, well, there are a few guys who were drawing stuff, but we had one official Pagan Soldiers logo that was drawn by one of the players. This was part of the Gauntlet City Limits, which I ran this year and was just so much fun, and I'm looking forward to it in 2017. But the club was part of Gauntlet and Gauntlet City. Mechanics for One Percenter are, they're pretty quick and easy. It's a pool of 6-siders that you build from some aspects of your character. To me, the mechanics carry the spirit of the game, but generally do that more traditional style of game of getting out of the way. And I don't mean that as a slight. There's so much spirit of a cool outlaw biker gang in this. Like, fucks, as I mentioned, is a stat. and it's cool because it's a dual meaning use of the word. So it's all about giving a fuck, right? It's not about actually having sex. But it's, hey, let's find a nice blue word to really bring across the color of this world. And when you lose your effective hit points, you lose fucks. Like, so it could be wounds, it could be mental stress, whatever it is, you give less of a fuck. Like, there is less of you that is pushing forward. the other cool thing about those is those are the things you spend to help out your brothers and sisters in the gang. Hey,
do you spend them or do you give them?
Oh, exactly. I really give a fuck about it. No, seriously, you are right in line with Robert because that's what it says in the book. I really give a fuck about you, man. I'm going to kick a dice your way.
And if you're out, do you say, I have no more fucks to give?
If you are smart, you certainly do.
So when that guy just looks at everyone else at the table and everyone shakes their head, 0 fucks given.
Yeah.
Exactly. Not going to help you, bro. And there's a cool cycle of the damage. When you lose
a cool cycle, you say.
Indeed. That is the best, Steve.
My table just flipped itself over the
We're not going to let you get through this, Rich. We're your outlaw biker gang, fucking everything up on
Oh, my goodness. The economy of Fox is that you have to, once you run out, or if you need to recover it, you actually have to either go find some street justice, be a vigilante, or, and it sounds odd, but it really pours back into the way that Sons of Anarchy worked as a show. You basically do community service.
Nice.
And it sounds kind of silly, but if you think about that biker gang has a home, they live within their community, and also it is modeling the show. Like, these guys did bad things, but dude, they didn't shit where they eat. Like, their home was important to them. Their family, which was the extended gang, was important to them. And so the scene we had where somebody was like, hey, they're at a playground, they're eating some burgers and just kind of laying low while the fuzz was around. And then one of them said, man, this merry-go-round is it's not working right. And then they just break out their bike tools and they start working on the mechanics and fixing up this playground in like 2 a.m. And that was such a cool scene. Who would have brought that up? Like, how would you imagine the idea of this big nasty biker gang that's, basically running drugs and has a huge rival gang they hate and fight, and here they are fixing a playground where nobody else is going to know. And that was nice because it gave me a couple of different ends to like this group as they grew into a family. And they did. The end scenes in this were just like the credits rolling on a really cool movie where you see these connections and they were earned. There were conflicts within the gang that got resolved together because they had enough going on to where it made sense for them to come together. We had prison fights, we had street fights in the middle of the street, grenades going off. It was so cinematic without ever going gonzo. And the rules were just right for that. And
it's cool. It's awesome.
I get to announce to you guys this really cool thing. So I'm going to be running Gauntlet City Limits in January. It's already full. I'll be running some more 1%er, picking back up the Pagan Soldiers, some new members of the gang. We got to shuffle. We got a few new players who are going to come in.
Cool.
But here's the coolest, exciting part. Robert Nolan reached out to me last month, and he said after watching our play, because I recorded those, privately unlisted on my YouTube channel, and he took a look at it and he said, I really like what these guys did. And so he has revised the combat rules into a playtest version that's a lot more narrative and cinematic to some of the ways that we ran it. So that now he's provided that document to me, and that's what we're going to be playtesting in January.
That's pretty cool.
Nice.
That's awesome.
What a cool kind of feedback mechanism. Robert's part of the overall community. We brought him in when he first heard out about me playing 1%er. I've taken a look at and really excited to get in some more Creepy Doll Studios games and run those. Dead Teenager.
I want to try that one that's like the final girl. That's the one.
Yep,
that I've got
Dead
my eye
Teenager.
on.
Yeah, that one's right up your alley. And then, 1 Foot in the Grave. I've got to run that. I had it lined up around Halloween and scheduling didn't agree with me, but that game looks hilarious, man. It's really not appropriate, but it's going to be fun. So it's just been a great experience. 1%er, and I can't wait to run more of it. So it's definitely my game of the year.
That's pretty awesome. I'm so happy to hear about like Robert approaching you with like some changes to the combat rules, because it makes me think that maybe he's like, appreciated some of the stuff we've done on the show, right? And some of the things we've talked about in terms of like, what we like in mechanics. And I think that's great. Like you said, it's like a loop. It's something I've experienced myself, and I think that's pretty awesome. I haven't played 1%er yet. I really want to. It's one of those things, kind of like we were talking about earlier with Worldwide Wrestling and your baseball thing. I don't really have any interest, like any built-in interest in like motorcycle gangs, and I've never seen Sons of Anarchy, but I can get behind a game that is about the camaraderie of this group of people, right? And how they stick up for each other, and maybe how they sometimes like, make decisions that are not so great for each other, but they still are this like cohesive unit. I mean, if you think about it, if you think about like fantasy literature, really Fellowship of the Ring is the only one where you have like a group of people together, like going to a place, right? Normally in fantasy literature, it's just one person or maybe two people, right? Mm-hmm. In most literature, it's just like one character and maybe they're what's Don Quixote's sidekick's name? Sancho Panza. Yeah. Like it's that. And so there's a certain contrivance because of the nature of like how we organize role-playing games. There's a certain contrivance in a lot of these games of like, we're these 4 or 5 people who just happen to be together doing a thing, right? And that's not necessarily reflected in a lot of like fiction that's out there. But this is one of those cases where they are, right? Like this is one of those cases where they are a group of people who have a reason to be traveling together and working together and doing things together. And I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah, that's it sounds like a really great game. I haven't gotten to play it yet either. I love that Robert is engaging with our community in such a way that he is actively like changing his game based on how our community does it. That's so that's just really neat that he holds us in that kind of esteem, that he bothers to watch, and then that he really pays attention, is like, this could be better if we do it this way. That's so cool.
I mean, if nothing else, trying it out, right? I mean, there's something to be said about like his willingness to try it out. I think that's pretty awesome.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said for like, oh yeah, that's like, I want to take this to another level. I think that's pretty awesome.
Well, and I want to second some of the things that Rich said, because I played the first 2 sessions and I haven't watched Sons of Anarchy, and I actively avoided it. It had absolutely no interest, actually kind of repulsive to me. But Rich ran it and I dug it. It worked at the table. It worked. It felt good. I wish I'd been able to play the later 2 sessions. And Rich has said this, but I have to back this up. It is some of the most evocative rules without going overboard. Because I've read some rule set where they really dig into it and they try to be super evocative. Like I'm thinking of Human Occupied Landfill and some of these other ones that try to be in their tone and are just painful. No, this is evocative. It has a consistent tone, and it is good to read.
That's so cool. It really, hearing about it and how you describe it, it makes me think, like, I don't know if anyone's done this yet, but it makes me think, like, this might be a real good 1-2 hack to make, the Mafia PBTA game or whatever, where you've got the family, and it's about the family at the end of the day, but really they're actually still, the Mafia.
Well, to be clear, 1%er it's not PBTA, but yeah. I mean,
it's not.
No. It's like it's a
I run those
D6
things too.
Pool system. Yeah.
Rich, I forget, in 1%er, do you have to roll dice as the GM?
I do. However, in the new rules, I don't.
Oh, okay.
Oh my god!
Success.
Player-facing
awesome.
dice.
So cool. Player-facing for the win. Rich, is there anything else you want to say about it?
And 1%er's great. Lowell's Drago should have been the leader of the gang, and that was like the running joke. He was absolutely the most competent, but nepotism. So yeah. That's awesome.
Awesome. This episode of the Gauntlet podcast is being sponsored by our friends at Nocturnal Media. Nocturnal has entered into a publishing agreement with game designer Ben Dutter and his company Sigilstone Publishing. You'll know Ben from games such as Belly of the Beast, Hunt the Wicked, Vow of Honor, and his most recent successful Kickstarter, Perseverant. we're big fans of Ben's games over here at the Gauntlet. He's a great guy, and this is super exciting because it means he's going to be able to reach a lot more people with his stuff. So go to Nocturnal's website. We'll have a link in the notes and check out the details of this deal. It's pretty cool. Thanks again to Nocturnal for sponsoring the show.
Hi everyone, this is Timothy, and actually picking my favorite game of 2016 was kind of hard. It kind of came down between Apocalypse World 2nd Edition and Urban Shadows. I played both of them a lot this year and loved them both, but I guess probably Urban Shadows would be the one I would pick if a knife was held to my throat.
My name is Tomer Gurantz, and my favorite game of 2016 was Strash Asimovic's Atlas Reckoning. It's a game of humanity's last stand with big battle mechs versus kaiju, but I chose it because of its amazing combination of intense narrative card-based battles with PBTA-style playbooks for mech pilot archetypes and personal soap opera drama scenes in between conflicts. I loved coming out of it feeling like I just saw an epic episode from some childhood animation spectacular.
My name is Fraser Simons, and my favorite game of 2016 is probably Bluebeard's Bride. I'm really excited about what it does for mechanics and reinforcing a theme and a genre. I think it's just perfect, and I can't wait to play it soon on the Gauntlet.
Hi, I'm Ollie Jeffrey, and my favourite game of 2016 is Lovecraft-esque by Becky Anderson and Josh Fox. Because after 3.5 decades of Cthulhuoid role-playing games, this is the first that really feels like one of Lovecraft's stories, regardless of how much of his work you know going in. It also shines a light on the many distasteful aspects of Lovecraft around race and mental health, and gives suggestions on how to avoid the same problematic old tropes in your games.
All right, well, are you guys going to give me a drum roll? My favorite game of 2016. Well, first of all, I'll have a long intro like Rich did.
Yes, long intro.
No, I didn't keep track of it with numbers like Rich did, but I played a lot of games this year too, and this is something of a cruel and ridiculous exercise to pick like a single game that is like your favorite of the year, right? But nevertheless, it's what people tune in for. People like certainties and decisions, right? So I had loads of runners up. I went back and forth for weeks, basically, thinking about this. I could have easily seen myself picking Until Dawn by Wilhelm Persson.
So good.
Really awesome game. Yeah, that was great. Lovecraft-esque, which has gotten a ton of coverage from us. The Sprawl, which was amazing. I fucking love The Sprawl. Left Coast and Palace Gates. Those are two games I played recently that really made a good impression. Those were all in the running for me. But when I think about the game that I keep going back to as just being kind of like the most delightful, almost transcendent experience I've had this year, it's got to be Fall of Magic for me by Ross Coleman.
Nice.
Yeah, so Fall of Magic, just a very quick overview. I'm sure most of our listeners know what it is, but it's the scroll game, right? You have this scroll, and the scroll is a map. You roll it out, and you move your characters are a group of people, a la Fellowship of the Ring, on a journey with the Magus, this character who's kind of like their mentor, their superior. They're going on this journey to go to the city that's like the heart of magic because magic is dying and some stuff happens. The point is, the main point of the game is the journey, right? Like you're moving from place to place within this fantastic world. You are learning about the world, you're learning about each other. A lot of the game is about just sort of being in the moment with your traveling companions and having like a certain camaraderie. How you perceive your companions is important. You change during the course of the journey. Like sometimes, your character has like a change of heart in certain ways they think about things. And so that, that all comes out. It's a game about a journey. To me, it is, thematically speaking, it's like all the things about Lord of the Rings or about the Fellowship of the Ring that I love that most of the other role-playing games didn't decide to focus on, right? Like, most of the other role-playing games saw Lord of the Rings and said, orcs are cool. I like a dwarf. And that's what we got, right? Which is great. There's a joy in that. I know Steve won't agree, but there's a certain joy in that.
Yeah.
Yes, there is.
Yes, there is. But Fall of Magic is really about that aspect. To me, it reminds me of those parts of Fellowship of the Ring that are about like the way the characters interact with each other and the bonds that they have, and also like this idea of moving through, you know, going through the eyes of the hobbits and seeing this wondrous place, you know, arriving at wondrous places. That to me is the pleasure of Lord of the Rings. And so Fall of Magic is a lot of that. The game, almost from the moment you grab it in your hands, it's about journey and discovery, right? Like the box, it comes in this nice long box, and the central image on the top of the box is a ship, right? Like, and if that's not a statement about what this game is about, I don't know what is. It's a ship that's on its way journeying somewhere to, you know, discover something. It's great. There's the scroll itself, and as you roll it out, you know, you're just hit with like all of these locations and words and images, and you just want to go there. You know, you just want to know, like, what is this? Like, I want to participate in whatever this is. The coins, you know, like when I first, before I even knew how the game was played, it's got these little coins which act as your character markers, and I held these coins in my hand, and I was like, if I was going on a magical journey, these are the coins I would use to pay my passage somewhere awesome. Right? Like, you know, the game just from moment one, like, invokes these feelings, right? And I love that. But there's also, you know, the mechanics reinforce a lot of this too. You basically move from location to location, and within these bigger locations, there are sub-locations, and each of those sub-locations has a story prompt. And when it's your turn, you can choose which location you're going to, and you just have to work that story prompt into your scene somehow. It's very, very light, but we found it was just enough to build on what we were already doing in the story. Like, it just worked perfectly. Like, it was exactly enough to like keep our story moving forward, and we liked that a lot. Some of the locations you get to add traits to your companions or yourself, and those are always fun scenes. And then some of the locations have a leaf on them, and that means something is changing. Usually it means like one of the player characters is changing in some way. So that was all really cool. A very, very light system that works really nicely in terms of like just framing up some simple scenes and playing out to certain like story prompt results. But I think, like, mechanically speaking, the thing I love the most about the game is it is paced beautifully. It's got such a nice sort of like group governed pacing mechanism. Essentially the way it works is you can keep having as many scenes in a certain location as you wish, but at a certain point on your turn, you can choose to move the magus to the next location, which means the whole group is moving to the next location. And then you have a special magus scene that kind of shows the group moving to a new location, and that almost functions like a change in chapter, or like if it's a TV show, it'd almost be like a change in the like in a new season of the show or something like that, right? It's got that kind of like sort of progression feeling, but I like it because, you know, the game kind of says, okay, if you're all enjoying this location, if you're having a good time, if everyone's enjoying it, you'll keep having scenes here. And if as soon as someone's not, or they just think that it's done, like they've kind of milked this place for all they can, they choose to move on, and the rest of us just go with that, right? There's no discussion. It's just a thing that happens. And we found that it worked really, really nicely.
Yeah, I like that a lot.
Yeah, it's neat. Like, we had our story. I talked about this on the episode when we talked about, when I kind of reviewed it, but we did this, you know, we kind of moved through several locations, and then we got to this location that was called like the Woods of the Grey Rangers or something like that. And we stayed there for a long time. Like, it was a really long time. In fiction, it was like months worth of time. And in terms of like at the table, it was easily like a third of the session, right? And
oh wow.
And it's because we were just into it, you know. It was like we were getting so much out of the little story prompts, and it was just working so well that we didn't want to leave. You know, we loved the little story we were telling. And the best thing I can compare it to is, you know, like, you think about the second season of The Walking Dead, right? The second season of The Walking Dead, when they go to the farm, like, the whole season just takes place on that farm, right? Mm-hmm. And it's got that kind of vibe. It's like, this is the season where we're at the Forest of the Grey Rangers, right? And that's just where we're at, and that's what's happening. And it just felt really good. Like, it felt, you know, there were moments where, you know, a lot of it was like dealing with character conflict, but a lot of it was also just like, just very pleasant scenes of like kind of helping each other and learning about each other, as well as like very private sort of meditative scenes. It was just really, really lovely game.
So I'm curious, do you think that you could play this over like multiple sessions and linger at some places
in
more?
Fact, you can't finish the whole thing in one session, or unless you were playing a really long session. Based on the pace we were going, it would have taken us about three sessions to finish the whole thing. So yeah, the whole map.
Yeah, we backed it, and I have my copy, and it's up on the shelf. But it is one of the many I regret not getting to the table this year.
Yeah, get it to the table. It's so it's just lovely. I mean, games like this don't come around very often. It's beautiful to look at. It's physically beautiful. The gameplay is just light and almost dreamy sometimes, and it just feels really, really just loose and imaginative. You just look at the map and you just get inspired, And I had a great time with it. And when we were done, I wanted to immediately keep going. I hated that the session was over. And
that's a good sign.
I still haven't finished the map, but it's my favorite game of 2016. Really, really loved Fall of Magic.
Awesome.
Yeah.
If you can, man, get a hold of it. It's just the kind of thing that doesn't come around very often, and it feels special. It really does. It just feels like from beginning to end, it just feels like a special experience. So.
You can purchase Fall of Magic. It's on the Heart of the Deer to Corn website.
Cool.
So yeah, I'm pretty sure it looks like.
There's also a Roll20 online module, I believe, for it, right?
Oh,
really?
Yeah, Rich, you said you played it online, right?
I played it online, but the way we played was via Google Doc, where someone who had backed and had the digital version took the PDF and basically put up that, and it worked just fine. I'm sure you could easily do it in Roll20.
If this can be run online, it makes it so much more accessible to me, because that's the only reason I haven't played it.
Yeah. I mean, it's if I'm being honest, I think you'd be losing something, but you'd gain something too in that you get to play it at all, right? So that's important.
There is, in fact, a digital product for it on the Roll20 marketplace.
Cool. Good.
Awesome. Oh, cool.
Any way you can do it. I mean, the mechanics, irrespective of like the sort of like beautiful physical aspects of the boxed version, the mechanics are just so light and lovely, and they function beautifully. To me, it's like a really nice hallmark in like streamlined game design. Like it's just a game that efficiently does what it's supposed to do in a very, very pleasing way.
Into the Odd. It's a really small rule set, maybe 3 rules. You've got just 3 stats and a few hit points. You don't roll to hit just for damage. Everything else is rolled like a saving throw. In the game, you're delving into some strange places in a gritty 15th to 17th century, vaguely European setting. The book is scant on prose about the setting, but you get a good sense of it from the character creation table and the other randomization tables in the book, including the one for where you taste something in the world. If you roll bad stats, it gets balanced out. You get better items and maybe even arcana, which replace the magic system. The author, Chris McDowell, is constantly adding new optional rules on his website. Yay!
My name is James Etheridge, and my favorite game is Masks: A New Generation, because every single mechanic in the game feeds directly into the type of emotional drama that the game wants to get across. Damage takes the form of emotional conditions, all of which do something specific within the mechanics in the fiction, and which require specific actions within the fiction to clear, which lead to further emotional drama. The social mechanic is all about influence, who has influence over you, who has power over you, whose opinion you care about. It's friggin' fantastic, and it was the first game which made me feel like I was GMing properly, because it cuts out all the fat and gives you exactly what you need to run the game, and that's why it's the best.
Hi, my name is Michael Barford.
Hello, my name is Max.
My name is Chris Wigand.
And my favorite game of 2016 is Dungeon World.
Dungeon World?
Dungeon World.
Dungeon World by Sage Latour and Adam Cobell.
I was one of those Pathfinder and Dungeon & Dragon players and Game Master for a long time.
Reading Dungeon World for the first time was really a revelation after coming from Dungeons & Dragons and all these other thick tomes of numbers and rules.
And I can tell you, I'm never opening one of those books again.
I've tried to run several other systems this year, and I constantly find myself thinking, I could just do this in Dungeon World, and it would just work.
Just reading the How to GM section of Dungeon World really made a lot of things click in my head, made storytelling collaboratively make a lot more sense, and provided the potential for a lot of fun.
It's very quick to get to the table and teach new players. My favorite part is finding out what the players are going to focus on and how they're going to solve problems in ways I never imagined.
Well, I had run it quite a bit. I haven't actually gotten a chance to play as a player since the preview Redbook edition back in 2011, so it was really great to actually be able to play this game.
Last year, I mostly played as a character, but now I have GM'd several campaigns.
And I had the opportunity to play some Dungeon World games with the Gauntlet, and it was an incredible time.
I love the community and discussion that has grown up around it, in large part thanks to the Gauntlet, but also a few other communities.
Dungeon World does everything I didn't know I wanted a game to do for me. Happy gaming, everyone.
And that's the end of our podcast for this year, listeners. We will be back in January with brand new episodes, a slightly retooled format. So we'll be anxious to see what you guys think of it. Let's just go around the table. Steve, thanks so much for all your help this year.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a pleasure to be on.
David, you don't get to come on the Gauntlet podcast very often, but I'll thank you for your Discern Realities help, too. I don't thank you often enough for Discern Realities. So.
Well,
I don't even tag you in the G+ posts.
I know. People didn't know who I was for a while.
I know. People didn't know you. I know. They're like, what's David's last name? But thanks for helping us out with this one. Lowell, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And Rich, thank you so much for everything you do, not just on the podcast, but in the community, too. You've just been such a rock in the community, and I'm super, super happy that you're here making the Gauntlet awesome. So
thank you, Jason. It's wonderful being part of Gauntlet. It gives me life every single day when I go into the Slack or the Google Plus or run or play games with all these fabulous folks. It's awesome.
Awesome, cool.
Yeah, and I think that I can speak for all of the Gauntlet members and listeners when I thank you, Jason, for organizing and pushing us forward and keeping the Gauntlet happening.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah, seriously.
Definitely.
I appreciate you saying that. Awesome. Thanks, guys. Listeners, if you'd like to get in touch with us in the meantime, before we start releasing new episodes, we are always on G+. We have a vibrant, active G+ community that isn't going anywhere. So hang out with us there. We have a website. It's gauntlet-rpg.com. We're on Twitter. I'm up to 3 tweets a week, which is amazing for me. I know. I tweet 3 times a week at Gauntlet RPG. And we're on Patreon. We'd love your support on Patreon. It's patreon.com/gauntlet. Go check out Lowell's blog, Age of Ravens. It's amazing. Rich has a YouTube channel with all his APs. I'm trying to think, what does Rich have? You have you have your YouTube channel with all your APs. Go check that out. David has DR with me. David, you don't have any other RPG things besides DR, right? That I should be aware of?
No.
Okay. If you're in Lubbock, go play a game with David. And Steve, International Man of Mystery.
Indeed.
He diligently edits the podcast, but is otherwise invisible from the internet. Although you now have Slack on your phone, which is amazing.
I do. I have a phone that doesn't suck as much, and so yeah,
3 cheers for that. It's been a super fun year, listeners. Thanks so much for supporting us. That's our show.
Hello, my name is Donovan. My favorite RPG of 2016 is Dungeon World because of my character, Infant. When he did that weird thing where he reached into a pouch in his pocket, threw out some sparkles and stuff, and said, "Possess."